Can you just start by maybe telling us your name and how old are you and what is your occupation? Yeah, yeah.
I'm Sarkasi Said, now at the age of 78, and my profession is doing artwork. And I've been doing it since my childhood days.
Can okay. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your early years? Where did you live when you were growing up, and what was the surrounding like?
I live in a small kampong which is situated at Gentle Road in the Ken Hill district. And I have then very beautiful natural surroundings, and there are a lot of natures that are exposed to me, and I was so happy that I had the opportunity to be with nature all the time. And of course, we are very sort of limited occupants, in the kampong, which may be about 1,000, or the very most is 2,000 people. And most of them are Malays, or they are from the Javanese origins. And of course, there were some Chinese and Indians that lived together with us. And it was so beautiful and wonderful time because everybody is related to everyone in the kampong. So we can tell who is in which house and from what family. So it is so nice that we know each other very well. So when we live together, we help each other, and we play together, either play marble or anything, that the children were always together. I think that was one of the things that I remember very, very well.
So, just wanted to ask you because you are a batik artist. So, what is your earliest contact with batik? Was there any early contact with batik in this early period of your life?
Yes, in those days, every Malay house has a collection of batik. And on special occasions, everyone will be using batiks, mostly the Malay elderly ladies. And these occasions also use batik for the activities. For example, marriage, they will be using batik, and first mother-to-be, they are sway with batik material, and so are also funerals, yeah. We do use batik during funeral. Use batik for those who visit, and also for the use to cover the body of the dead. So that was when I started to actually have a direct contact with batik.
So, you mentioned that um, people use batik and wore batik on special occasions. Then, on ordinary day to day, when there's no special festivity, what do they wear in the kampong?
Yeah. I think in those days, not many people using batik for everyday attire. Reason is this, that it is so rare to get good batik and use batik. It is not like what we are now. We see batik in any corner of the town or the city. You can see that. But those days you don't. Some of the family has got to borrow batik for certain occasion because they don't have, and it is expensive at that time. And this is how that it is not being used. And in particular, the ladies won't use it unless there is certain function. So if we see someone using batik, then there must be something. Something is happening in that, so we can tell. And that's how it was. Yeah, I think that.
That means otherwise, from a day to day, they wear the normal baju, but not
Yes.
with the batik print lah.
Mm.
So only when somebody is wearing a batik decoration, it
Then
symbolizes
there's
something.
certain occasion is.
You also mentioned in several places, such as your biography, the book Lyrics in Wax, or also in some newspaper articles that your grandmother, when she was bringing you up, she was also selling batik at the marketplace. So, what kind of batik was it that she sold, and then where did she get this batik to sell?
First, she was dealing in classical batik. Batik that comes from Indonesia, especially from Java, because I'm from the Javanese family. So they are like relatives or traders who bring special batik, and they approach my grandmother, and my grandmother sell this batik. First, she sells to houses, to families that they know. And batik has developed from hand-drawn to block and to even silk screen. So that was the time when more batiks are being produced. Sections of different batik techniques used, and these products are then sold to the community, and that was when the business also grows, and the diversity of batik will tell the quality or the value of the batik itself.
So you mentioned that your grandmother received, the source of her batik was from friends or relatives who brought it from Indonesia. Um, in those days when you were younger, uh, first of all, would she have known how to make batik as well at home? Does she do that, or was there anybody around you who was making batik?
No, not at that time. No, no one.
S-
Uh,
Generally, batik is not a domestic product.
is not a product that being produced, So we are not batik-oriented nations, So it's been done somewhere else, and people knows batik only by the products, not the process and so on. And this is where I emphasize that what actually is batik, whether batik is the product or batik is a technique. So by then I realized someone must be doing batik. Someone must be doing batik. And that was why that I have some interest in looking how it is being made. And I have the opportunity at a very, very young age to visit Indonesia, to visit places where they produce batik. And that is how that I became so acquainted with it, and so interested in knowing more about what batik is.
Was at that point in time, right, when you were younger, was Singapore an important batik production center at all?
No, not at all. You know, it was not until uh, the 60s or or mid 60s or mid 70s that there were few producers of batik that come to Singapore. And for example, if I can mention name is, for example, like Dressler of Design Batik, Sia Kim Ju, and Kiat, yeah, Mrs. Kiat. So they produce batik in Singapore, and they get their workers from Indonesia as well as from Malaysia, Kelantan and Terengganu. And this is how they do, because by that time, batik has become more popular, yeah, among the community, not only here but elsewhere, like Japan, Europe, and so on. So that is how batik at that time flourished. Yeah. And talking about flourish, I think Singapore was the place that was a center of trade, so trading center of the region. And because of that, many people from all over the world that come to Singapore would see and appreciate batik, and that is how it becomes popular. Yeah.
Today, of course, you are a batik artist, or you are an artist who works mainly with the batik as a medium. But I want to ask you a little bit about your earliest training in art and art making. Uh, where did you first maybe find an interest in the art, or start to make art?
My interest in art was from the very beginning of my life. As a child, I've already had interest in art. I mean, I can remember that I collect magazines, photos of cars. So I have collections of books, cars, So I can remember what sort of car, where is it made, and what year and so on. There are so many of them, and they were mostly the European and the American, cars that are found in those magazines. But the environment doesn't actually allow me to keep all those, because we have floods. And in my kampung, when there's flood time, means everything is gone. So that's that sort of an environment that makes me, I would really feel very, very happy and proud if I have those photos now, That's how I feel. But it was then that I started to mingle. This is about mid 60s. I started to go to Indonesia, to Malaysia, and see if I can get some knowledge and learn of how it is being made. Fortunate and unfortunately that people were not so sharing in the technique of craft or art that they do. Of course, I understand that that is their bread and butter, but by being so, I started to learn by myself, to go around, look at things, and try to sneak into batik, sort of producers, what they use, and it's from trial and error. Yeah. When I come back to Singapore with that little knowledge, I find what can I do? But it's like jigsaw puzzle. I came back to Singapore, I met someone who is a stage decker in the National Theatre. To my surprise, he gave me a chest with full of textile dye. I asked him, what is this? He said, I don't know. He said, it is textile dye, but how to use? He said, don't know. So I learned it by myself, by mixing different colors and by maybe trying to put some oil or something like that and try, but doesn't succeed. So I said, why must I do it like batik? I have here the tubes of textile paint. I said, what can I do with it? So what I did with those color on material.
Going back to maybe even your earlier schooling days, what was the art training like in school at that time? In primary school or secondary school? What
Oh,
kind of things did you all do in art class?
during my time, they do emphasize on art studies. I've got special teachers who teach art and who teach as to be aware of what art is and the subject that we used to. And I still remember one of the teacher, in fact, became a curator of the Singapore National Museum. Yeah, and the other one was teaching in schools where I went to. The one who's teaching is Sulaiman Suhaimi, and the curator was Suri. Cikgu Suri, Cikgu, I think Suri, the name is Suri. And, but at that time I didn't learn much about technique, but what I learned is about concept. For example, why a tree is different from the other. Why a tree is so tall, shooting out to the, or why the other one is creep on the on the ground. So that's what they teach me. So they are teaching me of awareness of the not only why, but is also to find out reason and the anatomy of how they are doing it.
When you were in school, you were also learning to do art, and of course, there's the art curriculum in school. Did they teach a range of different materials and technique, or did they, did they teach you sketching, watercolor, or gouache, different techniques?
I think they do, but I don't have the opportunity to do that because I'm really from down to earth family. I even go to school without shoes. Yeah, I go to school barefooted at that time. So that's why that I can't. But after realizing the alternative to look, I use charcoal, burn wood, and paper using newspaper, old newspaper, and so on. I start doing work then and use clay as color onto paper, and slowly then I sort of know, there are colors like watercolors or what do they call it? It's like a it's like a chalk. Yeah, pastel. It's chalk. So I use, and what I do is when I go to school with this, I will be the last person to go out from the class. Reason is to get the remnants of the chalk that they throw in the bin. So I get them, go out and start painting with it. So that's how I started to do, scribble or sketches, things like that. Yes. And what I do is, when I go to school with this, I will be the last person to go out from the class. Reason is to get the remnants of the chalk that they throw in the bin. So I get them, go out and start painting with it. So that's how I started to do, scribble or sketches, things like that. Yeah.
Around this time of schooling, and then this period where you were saving the remnant materials, where were you living also at this period of time?
At that at that period of time, I've already started to live outside.
How old were you around this
I
time?
was about maybe 11 till 14, Reason was why that I left the house. I live by myself on the street, so I catch a lot of my experiences on the street. So that's how I started to do. And what else was that? And those days, not many families would encourage their children as to take art. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why that I left the house and live on the street. So, because of that. And my feeling towards art was so strong because I live with them, in kampongs and so on. And I know that at that time, it's not difficult to live. Yeah, people were together. Even if I don't have food, some other children will give me food. So that is how I live, and that is how I practice as much as I can, like today.
When did you first begin to paint batik pieces, and where did you do it?
Well, there's again, as I said, there's no end. In early, I think, late 60s, early 70s, there was an exhibition of batik. With my nosy nose, I went to the exhibition and found out that an Italian who is using batik technique to do his artwork and is being exhibited. That was when the mind start working from that direction. I believe those days that batik is from this region. Yeah. So I feel that I should be the one who is using batik technique to do my artwork. But why an Italian? So then was the beginning. So I became more serious to know the technique and to know the material use and so on and so forth. And I do get this idea by uh, offering myself as a designer. And this is where there is the first batik factory in Singapore. So it is called Shahab, owned by Shahab brothers. Though they were weaving, doing weaving in Indonesia. So I feel that the owner would like to do batik, so bring the batik decides to do here, because they realize how important Singapore is to the business, so they do here. So I offered myself to work as a designer. I cannot go into their dyes saw. I cannot go beyond the coloring, and so on, beyond that. So I only work outside in the office. But during lunchtime, I always go out and sneak. I cannot go inside, so I just sneak, looking, peeping what they do and how they do and so on. So by looking at that, I realized I cannot do it, So I said, I'm going to Indonesia. So I'm going to Indonesia again, and knowing the technique how they use by dipping their material in one bale of color and then dip another in another bale. So I went to Indonesia and I found out that they were using chemical dyes. So the chemical dye that they use is it's chemical dye. Well, I can. Well, these chemical dyes, the dye is neutral. There is no color, so it's neutral. But when you dip inside the soil, then the color comes out, and it's already fixed. So by then, you can wash and boil. So that was. It is not as simple, the concept is, because I'm not doing material, I'm doing, artwork, small work in those days. How am I going to use that? How to throw, going to throw away this, and how to dip. Now you cannot do one color with one bale and then throw and then do again. Cannot, So it's hard. So slowly I get the idea of using the chemical in a small way. Then I try to use with brush. So when I apply the brush, this area, and then I put the salt onto it, then the color is there. So I wash and then do another color with another one until it becomes, a painting that I like. So that's how it started. After the experience of the Italian, then I started to do, after this visit to Indonesia, then I started to do batik work, which I understand it's a resisting technique. So if resistance is used, and to resist the dye from penetrating into the part where you don't want it to be color, then that technique is called batik technique. Still, I believe the product is not batik.
So I want to go back a little bit to maybe somewhere slightly earlier, because I think in the book Lyrics in Wax, you also said that when you were younger, you cycled with a friend to the night market in Orchard Road, and what at this time, right? What kinds of artworks were you selling at these night market? Because you also mentioned the other day when we were chatting, Haw Villa, maybe some of these places. Yeah.
That time I've already started batik, but not in a full, I was still doing sketches, watercolor, and batik. So my batik was part of the work that I do, that I practice. And I do a lot of sketches, yeah. I do a lot of watercolor in those days, direct watercolor. Uh, so I show my works in places where there are tourists, where there are, so that's as to be able to maintain in life. So that's what I do. So it was sometimes, I mean, at that time I already started to look at galleries and so on, small galleries, small shop and so on, even shopping's shops. Then so I already started and becomes productive. I do a lot of sketches, and in those days, lots of artists, I would say practically almost 90% artists are doing works of Singapore River. It becomes so important for economical reasons that everyone was doing batik. And itself, when I work, I use all the media and all the different subjects. I mean, the sketch, Chinatown, street scenes, maybe botanical garden, and then flowers, and then orchids, things like that. So I do all this in all the different media. Oil, acrylic, batik, I do. I just walk around, and then I walk in Tangling shopping center, and that where Suncraft was situated, and I just went in, asked them, and so on, and they are happy to help me, so I did leave some sketches, with them.
So how did you then get to become aware of the gallery system?
No,
How did you make the switch over?
I think since there are times where, available, so I just walk around to look at different places, different shopping shops and galleries. At that time, I wasn't thinking of anything but thinking of for survival. That was one of the things. And this is why that I approach galleries, because I need, it's necessary for me to sell my work and to have something. That's why I was there. And this seems to carry on, as I said, they do sell, and they started to sell my bigger pieces and so on, or when someone commission, then they will ask me to do if I can do it or not, so things like that. So it's one of the place where I can get, everything.
Then, so I think your first exhibition was a national museum. A national library
Yeah,
exhibition.
National Library.
Yeah. So, can you remember how that came about, and what is the title of the exhibition? Can you remember?
One of it that I remember well, Instant Singapore.
Instant Singapore.
Instant Singapore.
You approach the Malay Art Gallery at that time.
Yes,
So I just wanted to maybe also find out, right? What was the kind of exhibitions that the Malay Art Gallery did at the time?
I think most of the exhibitions they organize were works of the Malay, artists, and they do also some non-Malay artist exhibitions, yeah, but mostly Malays. Yeah.
This exhibition was an exhibition of miniatures, was it?
In
Was it the exhibition? It was an exhibition of miniatures.
yes, yes.
Yes, and so was there a reason why they were small pieces? Is it because of your production, your space, or was it because what was the reason for making it small?
I think one of the reasons of making small pieces were that of economical reasons. I work. I cannot afford as to do bigger pieces and so on, so I get smaller pieces, and it's more than 100 pieces. Yeah, it's quite big. And after the exhibitions, I was offered as an in-house artist. That means I can practice, I can do my works up in the studio, at the gallery.
At the Malay Art Gallery.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, and the guest of honor I remember for this was Mr. Christopher Hui,
Christopher, yes.
who was already the director of the National Museum at
Yes.
that time. Again, did you invite him to be the
Yes.
guest of honor?
Yeah.
How did you get to know Mr. Christopher Hui at
I
that point?
went to the museum and
Oh, you went to the museum and looked for him.
most of the time that I will be the one who approach.
Yes.
Yeah, that was almost everywhere. Any person, I will approach them.
So okay, so there's a lot of knocking on people's door and
Yeah,
asking.
on my own, my sort of enthusiasm of going,
Yes.
pursuing in that, so that I meet them, I visit them. Yeah.
And did you also meet Miss Constance Shears at this
Yes.
time of?
Yes. Uh, I was invited to do a workshop in National Museum, National Museum, and she was the one who invited me. Not invited, but I approached her, can I, do this? And she said, oh yes, if you would want to. So I did for several months. It's not a week or two, for 5 or 6 months. And I do my work also at that time. By the end of the demonstrations, I had an exhibition at the National Museum called Big and Bold. They are of black and white. Those were the bigger pieces that I ever done. Never did such a big pieces. Maybe 1.5 or 2 at that time. Yeah. I can't remember, but it was officiated by the German ambassadress, a lady. Yeah.